Welcome to One-on-One. I'm Greg Bassett, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. It's a big day here at PAC 14. We have the big honcho in the house, the new head of our school system, Dr. Micah Stauffer. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
So how's it going?
So far, I think we're in the honeymoon phase of the superintendency. I am enjoying getting out and meeting with community members, talking with staff, and really just getting to know the people that make our school system work and run each and every day. So it's been exciting, really.
Well, to put you on the spot, you were always sort of a quiet guy in the background under Dr. Hanlon, but now you've emerged as this leader guy, and I have to say you're a whole different person than I thought you were.
Well, I appreciate that. I think I have been a school principal for a number of years prior to moving over to central office. From there, I was the director of secondary education, where I was able to work with the principals and staff from all of our middle schools, our high schools, our evening high school, and our Choices Academy. And then when I went through my doctoral work, took some coursework in business and finance in those areas, and I saw an opening for the Chief Finance and Operations Officer, and that has worked out very well. It's given me a whole other perspective of the school system and working with the business and operations side.
What is your leadership style going to be? I've watched lots of superintendents, going back to Harold Fulton, I think was the first one that I watched closely. And they've all had their different ways of managing the school system, and they've all been good at within their own personality. What kind of superintendent do you plan to be?
When we go through coursework in education, advanced coursework, whether it be our graduate studies or our doctoral studies, whatever it may be, there's this leadership assessment that is incorporated into some of the classes. And I would say, technically, when I take these surveys, I'm somewhere between a transformational leader and a participative leader, meaning that I always am thinking about what can we do better, what's our next steps, where are we going to move forward, how can we do this? But also the other side of it is I'm looking at how can we do this as a team, what are the people that are doing this work thinking about how it's going, and I would say at the end of the day, to characterize all of that, I would put myself as a servant leader. I love to work with people. I like to work alongside of them, ask them a lot of questions about what's going on, how's it working for them, how are we doing as a school system to support them in the work that they're doing, whether it be from our food service personnel to our bus drivers, our teachers in the classroom, or administrators that are leading our schools. I think servant leadership is something I've been talking a lot about this summer since stepping into this position, and it's about hearing from our staff and really looking at the ways that we're supporting them and helping them do the work that they do each day.
That's really great to know, because the best bosses I ever had were servant leaders, and they're very rare, because I think it's harder to be a servant leader and kind of keep yourself out of the middle of everything and make sure that you're empowering people to do their best job.
And really that's what it's about. I think there's two things that a servant leader needs to at least always keep in front of them, and one is talking about that team. You know, how can we build a better team, a stronger team? How can we provide the resources and the capacity within our school system to do what we need to do and the best of our ability to raise student achievement and always put student learning first, but also it's about building other leaders. And you mentioned that word, empowerment. How can we build other leaders within our school system? And really everyone I've talked about is a leader within our school system. A leader is anyone that influences others. And no matter what role that you look at within our school system, they're influencing others in some way. And it's about how do we go about the work and how do we go about the relationships, because I think building relationships is a key piece of that.
I got to see a presentation you gave recently where you did a numbers assessment on the school system, and it was excellent because you were able to identify the problems that exist in the system from an analytical point of view.
Well, I think in Wicomico County, 60% of our students come from poverty based upon our federal guidelines. We know that we have a number of English learners. Out of almost 15,000 students, we have almost 1,400 students that are learning English, and English is a second language to them. We know that students are coming to us in pre-K already behind in school regarding their reading skills and their learning skills. So those are things that we really focus on. I think our pre-K initiatives, and I give Dr. Hanlon, I've said this all along, Dr. Hanlon has had a great vision for our school system these past 6 years. She was very forward-thinking in the areas that we're focusing on. As we move forward, we know that Blueprint's going to be a big factor in what we do in our school system. And universal pre-K, college and career readiness, making sure that we're attracting and recruiting and retaining the best teachers that we possibly can, and that we have a high-performing workforce, that we're distributing the resources that we need among all of our schools and all of our student populations, and that we're accountable for the student achievement that we have within our school system. Those are areas that we've been working on here in Wicomico County for a number of years, and we're going to see that play a greater and greater role throughout the state as we move forward. So I do think that those are initiatives that we'll be focusing on, and as we look at our numbers and we look at our achievement, I'm really excited about what I'm learning about is the growth that our students are making. They may start at one level, but when they come to us, after they've spent some time with our teachers and with our staff, we're really seeing a significant amount of growth, and that's exciting.
And while the numbers show some realities and some challenges and some problems, the numbers also reflect some really great stuff in terms of the scholarship, the performance of the seniors. Graduation rates have improved, attendance has improved even with the pandemic situation. Lots of important numbers have improved.
That's right. Some of the numbers on that slide, one is $26.8 million that our students earned in scholarships just last year to go to college, which I think is outstanding, where we're graduating about 1,000 students a year. Another number is 83,000 plus. That's the number of service learning hours that our students are putting back into the community each and every year. That has an economic impact for our community, and I'm proud of that number as well. We currently have an 83% graduation rate, which I think we're continuing to work on and continuing to grow. But when you look at it compared with our CTE program, students that are completing that program have over a 97% graduation rate. So we're seeing some successes, a lot of successes, and we're able to see some things that we can build from as well.
CTE is like the place to be.
CTE is the place to be, and it's been for a number of years. We have an excellent supervisor. Mr. Brian Ashby is leading that program over there and has been for a number of years now. We're seeing some exciting things. We're seeing competition to get into certain programs. We're filling all of the seats within our programs and finding ways to expand out from the CTE Center into the schools so that we can continue to expand the programs that we're offering in CTE. But most of all, what we're seeing is success and student engagement. When students get into that program and they choose one of the paths that they're working towards, we see that they're engaged in the work that they're doing, the learning that's taking place, and they see the purpose behind that. And it's something that they want to continue to be able to do, and they're coming to school for those programs, and we're seeing the success in their numbers, whether it be attendance, their GPA, or graduation rate. Those are all things that we see that are really strong with any of our CTE students.
You all open up in like 2 weeks, so
we do.
It's hard to believe. How are you seeing morale going into the new season?
Honestly, as I'm making my way and talking to a number of different community members, talking with our administrative teams, talking with staff within our buildings, I'm really rejuvenated by what I see. I'm seeing staff that are optimistic, they're filled with hope, they're excited, they're ready to start the school year. And I think that we're all excited to see students back. We're excited to get back to where we were prior to the pandemic, and making sure that students are engaged not only in the classroom, but outside the classroom, whether it be through athletics or clubs or band, chorus, different organizations. Let's get them involved in what they're doing in the entire educational system. And we know that's going to bring positive results both outside the classroom but inside the classroom as well. Other things that we know we have to continue to do is make sure we're providing students and meeting the mental health needs. We did see a number of mental health needs coming out of the pandemic that still exist both with students and staff. And we've been able to really provide some additional resources as we look at meeting those needs. 5 years ago, we had 12 social workers in our entire school system. We now have 32, plus other mental health staff that we have to support those efforts. We have a social worker in every school or program within Wicomico County, along with school psychologists and other mental health workers. So we're helping to educate our staff, meet their needs, and we're also working together as a team to help meet the needs of our students and our families as well.
The teacher's there to teach, so the teacher needs a support network of people that will let them do their jobs as best they can.
That's right. And these types of staff are not only helping to meet those needs, but they are providing our staff with a number of different strategies and things that they can do within the classroom as they build relationships with students, as they work with students to help identify what those needs are, and then, of course, serve at that ground level, and then be able to refer students and link them with other mental health professionals that can meet the needs that they may have.
You've got a couple of fun things coming up. The new Beaver Run School is going to open this year.
The new Beaver Run is very exciting. It's a beautiful school. They will be there to welcome students on the first day of school. The staff have already been in that school, of course, to get their rooms ready. Our administrative teams have been in there this summer. They're still completing site work, so there's still going to be a lot of action going on around the property of Beaver Run. They're putting in some temporary type parking and student drop-offs and that type of thing right now. But we should be completed totally with that project, both inside and outside, by Christmas. And then we're looking forward to some type of celebration later this spring to really dedicate that school.
It was just a really difficult teaching environment, and now it's going to be great.
It's beautiful. And short story, I grew up right across the street from Beaver Run. So that school, the original school, was my stomping ground and where I played as a kid and went on the weekends and rode my bike and played on the playground with friends and things like that. So it was personal for me to see that original building be taken away, but then replaced with this beautiful new building. And I do appreciate, obviously, the support that we have from our county regarding capital projects. We receive a lot of support from the state as well, and we're able to, with the funding that we receive, we're able to look at some type of major renovation or replacement about every 4 or 5 years, somewhere in that time frame. Of course, Mardella is right behind Beaver Run. If you've been by there, you've already seen the construction starting.
I didn't expect it to start so fast and be so massive right away.
So we have approximately 20 classrooms, portable classrooms that are now in front of the school. There's already been some demo work with classrooms on the back of the school where they're going to begin at this point in time. And that'll be a 3-year project that will be a major renovation and addition to that school. So there were a number of portables behind the school originally, and now we're going to bring all of those classrooms in to the building space and then renovate the existing space as well as the site work and exterior space for bus drop-off, parent drop-off and pickup, and parking.
It's a very tight-knit community there, very proud. In terms of student performance, it's one of the best performing, if not the best performing high school in the county.
It is, and I'd like to say that we're looking at all of our buildings. We have a great capital improvement program that prioritizes the needs that we have within our school system. But the problem is that by the time we get to each school, it's typically overdue. And I know
Right.
Mardella's been waiting for a long time for a school and a building that we're going to be able to create for them. Some growing pains in the beginning, but obviously that's a smaller learning community out there. They take pride in their school. We've been working very closely with the community during the designing phase. So I think our facilities planning and construction team are going to really produce something that the whole community can be proud of, and it's just going to support the great things that are going on in that school.
School boards in recent years, last 2 years, have sort of become battlegrounds in America. It's not unique to Wicomico. In fact, I think that we're probably less of a battleground than a lot of other communities. The school board election's going on. Tell me how the superintendent, how it's supposed to work. How does the superintendent work with the school board and work with the public in these meetings?
The Board of Education, as you said, is elected, and they represent the community. Their one employee is me, and then I certainly lead the school system and the day-to-day operations of that school system. The Board of Education also sets the policy. Of course, they're going to do, they approve our budget, capital programs, any types of contracts or negotiation type agreements that we may enter into. They need to approve their personnel matters that go before them. But ultimately, I'm their employee, and then I lead the school system in the day-to-day operations with my staff.
Well, people want to battle about curriculum. Where is that decided?
So we have a curriculum council that does have board member representation on that council. We also have guidelines from the state of Maryland that would go to that council. And then from there, we do have flexibility for how we implement those guidelines from the state. We may implement some of them, we may implement all of them, we may choose to do it at varying grade levels. So I know that there's been some contention about the health curriculum in pre-K. Our health curriculum, we do touch on hygiene and some of those other things in earlier grades, but our health curriculum for some of those topics really doesn't begin until we get into middle school and early high school. And those are, guided through by our curriculum council. So curriculum council is also made up of instructional staff. They go through whatever the state guidelines may be. Sometimes there are new laws, sometimes there are new guidelines. They'll look at all of that in that curriculum council, make a recommendation with the board members, a part of that process that are on that council, and then that recommendation would go to the Board of Education ultimately for approval. So there's a lot of local control when it comes to curriculum here in Maryland. I think also that part of what I'm seeing and hearing as I engage community members this summer and certainly into the beginning of the school year, I'm hearing topics that are of concern to our community, but they may be topics that they're hearing on a national news program that I feel like, let's learn about what we're doing here in Wicomico County. We want to make sure that we are presenting to our students the values that are important to the Wicomico County community, and that's what we try very hard to do. So some of those items that are more political in nature, I always say, look, we need to pay attention to them and make sure that we're doing the right things. Most of all, we need to educate our own community on what we're doing, and we need to make sure that what we're doing isn't about politics, it's about student learning, it's about student achievement, and that's where really our focus should be, and that's what our priority is.
We've got the Kerwin Commission, the blueprint, you mentioned it before, a very ambitious program to make Maryland one of the top states in terms of providing education, public education. It's about to be implemented, it's going to be very expensive. Where does all that stand, and how's that going to go?
We have a great foundation already in existence. I feel like we're one of the leading counties in the state with the initiatives that we've already been moving into regarding universal pre-K, our college and career readiness, our dual enrollment, our relationships with Warwick, Salisbury University, UMES. We've been doing a lot of these things for a long time here in Wicomico, but it's exciting to see that now The funding will actually be there as a part of the funding formula and the state aid that we receive from the state. So we're going to be able to expand upon the things we've been working on. As far as Blueprint itself, we know that the Accountability and Implementation Board is a new governmental office out of the Maryland State Department. The Maryland State Department of Education will certainly be our liaison, obviously, for education across Maryland. But when it comes to the Blueprint, this new office that reports to the governor himself, the Accountability and Implementation Board, they will have ultimate control over that Blueprint initiative. We also know that CTE will now be under the Work Development Office of the state of Maryland and no longer a department within MSDE. So we've gone from kind of one boss to
Right.
three, so to speak.
Right.
But I think there are some positives that come from that. We're seeing the AIB, they began meeting last November. So it's been about 9 months that they've been meeting as a board, and we're going to start seeing some documents from them. They'll be producing a state implementation plan that then we'll be able to follow to produce our own local Blueprint implementation plan. The state plan should be produced at some point around Thanksgiving, and then our local implementation plan is due back to the AIB and MSDE in March. So there'll be a lot of work groups. We have a steering committee already formed, and we'll be pulling from some business partners, community members for some of those work groups, and we'll be completing that work moving forward over the course of this school year.
Tell me why you entered the system and what made it attractive to you.
I'd like to tell you that it was this well thought out and planned story, but as I said, I was born and raised here in Wicomico County. I went to Beaver Run Elementary School, Wicomico Junior High School at the time, and then I'm a graduate of Wicomico High School. I then went across the bridge to UMBC, and my undergraduate coursework was in biology and with a minor in chemistry. I came out of college not sure of what I wanted to be in life, probably not something that my parents were very excited about at the time. I had done some work, some apprenticeships in the medical field, and I knew that's probably what I didn't want to do.
Right.
So my parents said, look, you need to do two things. You need to continue with your education, and you need to get a job. And by the way, my father at the time was recently retired from the Salisbury City Police Department. He had began substitute teaching and said they're looking for great substitutes. In fact, back in the mid-90s, they had a substitute shortage, very much like we have today. So if you're a substitute, we'd love to have you. If you have bus driving skills, please make sure you apply with us. We'd love to have you as well. But now I got into substitute teaching and was taking some graduate level coursework at Salisbury University, and it was one of those things that just clicked. I enjoyed the atmosphere. I enjoyed working with students. I said, I think this is what I want to do. So I went through. I was the very first in the very first cohort of the MAT program, the Masters of Arts in Teaching program. It was a 14-month program that SU started. During that time, I was going there, and during that time, I took all of the teaching courses that I needed to take with my current degree at the time. I did all of the certification tests. I student taught, and I came out ready to be a teacher 14 months later and got my first job as a science teacher at Parkside High School. And from there, started coaching a little bit. I was an assistant coach for our baseball team, and then the head coach for the golf team, and just really enjoyed what I'm doing. And my wife, through her encouragement, she said, you ought to try administration. I think you would be really good at it. And I was going through and taking some additional graduate level coursework in administration. And I said, well, maybe I'll just put my name in the hat and see how it turns out. And by the time I get to a certain point in my career, I've had that interview experience and I'll be ready to go. Well, I got the first job that I applied for, and I was an assistant principal at Wicomico Middle School, which was amazing to go back to that school after I had been a middle school student there, before that, and then just continued to go from there as principal at Mardella Middle and High School, principal at Parkside High School, which was also a great experience to go back to that school, having taught there and to work with staff that were still there and the students in that community. And then I went into a position at Central Office, which was, as I said, was the Director of Secondary Education. I started on my doctorate degree and did some finance and some business courses within that degree. Went into the Chief Finance and Operations Officer, and I really enjoyed that perspective, getting to work with human resources, our finance, payroll, procurement, risk management departments, also looking at food service, our facilities, maintenance, operation, and energy, and then also planning and construction as well. So just, that whole variety and working with all of those departments and through COVID. If you remember when we first began with COVID and what we had to do with the buildings at that time, with the levels of cleaning that we were trying to accomplish, how our food service department, unsung heroes, they were feeding not only all of our students out on the bus drop off at many of our schools, but also the entire community at the time, making meals available to those and to support our community. So it's been exciting, and I have I think a great perspective of a variety of different areas of what makes our school system work. But it's been enjoyable, and I'm excited about this opportunity.
How can people reach you?
Well, currently I'm working with meeting the community members. I've been working over the last 6 weeks or so in as many community organizations, trying to speak in front of them, meet with some of our elected officials. I've met with all of the building administrators at this point in time. I'll be meeting with the staff, something that I wanted to do this year that's a little bit different. Instead of the large civic center kickoff that we have done in previous years, I felt like it would be nice to just go around personally and meet with each of the faculty at all of the schools. So my outstanding administrative assistant, as well as Tracy Saylor and Paul Butler, they put together a schedule that will keep me hopping over that first week and a half or so, but will put me in a position where I'll have an opportunity to speak to all of the staff members here in Wicomico County, and not just speak with them, but get input back. And that's the piece that you're talking about. My hope is that once we begin the school year, I'll continue that community engagement phase and talking with our students in some student forums, as well as the community and parents and parent forums as well. But I'm always an email away. We have a great website, comments at wcboe.org. We'll go to our our publications team, and they'll bring that back to our senior leadership team. And I know that goes to the Board of Education members. It also goes to myself. So in the meantime, they can certainly reach out. They can call, they can email. And my hope is that I'll be meeting with them soon in some of these forums.
He's Dr. Micah Stauffer. He's going to be starting his first school year as superintendent, and all of us need to wish him well. Good luck and get started this year.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time today. I appreciate this opportunity, and I am very excited about what we're going to be able to do moving forward in Wicomico County.
I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. Another edition of One-on-One right here on PAC 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and one-on-one. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.